Okay, this is Bill Helmer. TDI is serving as the chair of the committee for this term. And I guess Madam Secretary, we should probably check and see if we have a quorum. So we have TDI, we have the Department of State, we have the Department of Public Service. Who else is available?
Trot Unlimited.
Elizabeth Phillips for Adirondack Park Agency.
We want to put our efforts on this place.
Greg Kelly and Heather Gearlock for DEC.
It's Justin Fung, City of New York.
Webster Ripakeeper.
Hey, Bill, you're muted.
Would you run through the list, Laura, to make sure that everyone's name has been captured?
Yes, I'm trying to do that now. Have the call-in users announced themselves?
I don't know.
I have not. Jen Laird White, TDI.
Thank you.
And Laura, Josh Bagnotto, TDI. Good morning.
Thank you.
Jim Lodge, Hudson River Foundation.
Thank you, Jim. I am not hearing anyone from, I didn't hear anyone from APA.
Elizabeth Phillips, APA.
Thank you. And Scenic Hudson? Well, we do have a quorum.
All right. As I think everyone will recall, we had a bit of a kerfuffle with respect to the September 17th meeting, which was not recorded. And that, of course, prevents it from being an official meeting under state law. So we're going to actually have two meetings today. The first meeting we've just begun, and the only stuff on the agenda for that meeting are a reapproval of the minutes of the June 18th, 2020 meeting and an approval of the minutes from the September 17th meeting. Now, we already approved the minutes of the June 18th meeting when we got together on the 17th of September. So I was wondering if people would be okay with just someone making a motion. They haven't changed, and officially approving them. I vote today. Of course, if you have any further changes, I think it would be, perfectly okay to sort of bring them up here. But so the first item of business is approving the June 18th, 2020 minutes.
I move to reapprove the meetings of the June meeting.
Okay. Who is that?
Nouns.
Roger.
Thank you, Roger. Do we have a second?
DPS seconds that.
Okay. I presume there's no debate. If you don't speak now, forever hold your peace. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, great. The minutes for the June 18th, 2020 meeting are officially approved. Great, wonderful. Now, under the minutes of the September 17th meeting, which
Trot Unlimited respectfully moves that the minutes of the September 17th, 2020 meeting be approved as written.
okay. We have a second?
Well, actually, let me ask about that. Do we need to gavel out of the third meeting first and then re-gavel onto this one, or how do we handle this?
I think it's I think it's fine to do it now.
Then second.
Okay. Again, if is there any debate? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Wonderful. A motion to adjourn. The first meeting.
So moved.
We have a second.
DEC seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Okay. 3 unanimous votes. That is what we'd love to see here under Robert's Rules of Order. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie The Death of Stalin with Steve Buscemi and Michael Palin. There's a great scene where Michael Palin talks about how they're plotting unanimously in the Central Committee. It's quite amusing. Anyway, just a little, if you're snowed in and you're looking for an amusing movie to watch, I recommend The Death of Stalin. Okay, that was off the record. We were in between meetings. Movie reviews are off the record, and now we have to get serious again. And I'm going to call to order the second meeting. This is the official fourth meeting of the year. We have a quorum. I'll note a quorum for the record. And the first item on our agenda is an update on the Champlain Hudson Power Express projected timeline and development. And for that, we turn the rostrum over to Josh Bagnato. Josh, why don't you take it from here?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. Well, I hope everybody has had a nice day a nice morning shoveling snow. Seems like quite an event. I heard a report from Washington County just a little while ago that they got 3 feet of snow in Washington County. So obviously quite a storm. I'll provide some quick updates on what we have been up to. So I think everybody remembers that we submitted a couple amendments over the last year. One of those was related to 4 permit conditions that we wanted to change, and one of those was related to several route modifications that we wanted to make. Those 2 amendments have been fully approved. One in March of 2020, a second one in mid-August of 2020, and then there was a minor approval associated with the March 2020 approval that happened in mid-September. After that, since that time, we filed another minor route modification approval. This is for a modification over about a 1 mile stretch in New York City. That modification has been under review for about 2 months. There was a public comment period. There was a public statement hearing, and there's been a decision made by the ALJ recommending that amendment moves to the PSC for a decision. So we don't know when that's going to be decided on by the PSC, but that's the status of that one. So that's really the status of our modification requests with the New York Public Service Commission. We're continuing to do a lot of outreach in the communities, really with a focus on the upland communities. We to date have received 27 resolutions of support from municipal bodies extending from Washington County down through Rockland County. And so we're pretty active keeping in touch with the communities and letting them know what we're doing and again, seeking those resolutions of support. And then we continue to work on a day-by-day basis to get ready for construction. As it relates to the NISO process, we are participants in the class year 2019, as I think everybody knows. And that class year should be coming to an end in February, potentially early March. And there will be the decision we'll need to make on the deposit, which we've talked about previously. I think those are kind of the material updates that I have. Bill, I don't know. I know you're the chair, but you're also a TDI employee. I don't know if you want to add anything to that. Otherwise, happy to take questions.
I guess those all related to the docket 10-T-0139. That's the Article 7 docket. Probably some people in the committee may have noticed that in other docket numbers, we've done some other things this year that are kind of housekeeping things. We went through a corporate reorganization that was actually required by the 2010 acquisition of the company by the Blackstone Group. It was designed to take place shortly in advance of the closing. So I think it's an auspicious event to note that we went to the trouble of doing that in 2020. And that was approved by the Public Service Commission over the summer. And also something that sort of is a closing closing type item is requesting approval of our debt financing. And that is now pending in I don't know the docket number off the top of my head, but those are two things that are outside the Article 7 docket, but are, I would think, encouraging signs as to, how mature our development is at this point. And I think that's all I can think of in the interest of comprehensiveness. I did look at the draft nationwide permit changes, Matt. I thought that was pretty interesting what the Corps did. I don't think it really affects us. As you know, we have there's a new nationwide permit for electric and telegraph and telephone and telecommunication lines. And it's interesting. We probably wouldn't qualify for it if we were starting from square one because of the scope of our project and a number of other things. But we have an individual permit for everything we're going to do, both pre-construction and construction and operation. And we're pretty content with the terms of that permit. So it was a very interesting, move. I think the nationwide permit program will probably work more efficiently in light of those changes, but it didn't really have any effect on us. Jen, I know you're on the line. Is there anything else that TDI should cover here in the update?
No, I think that's it, Bill. Thanks.
Okay, so usually we open up the floor to questions here. So feel free to sort of lob them in, and the three of us will try to respond.
It's Roger. I have a request. Could the ALJ determinations on the modifications be included as part of the minutes?
In which case?
The permits that were granted with regard to the changes upstate and in New York City.
Yeah, sure. I think so. I mean, I don't know why we couldn't do that, Laura. I mean,
or at least links to them.
Yeah. So what we could do, Roger, this is Josh, is, as I mentioned, there's been 3 different approvals, one in March, one in August, one in September. Those are all final approvals. We can, give you the link to the docket and the dates of those approvals so that you can find them easy.
That would be great.
Sometimes it's a little hard to provide a link to the actual document because of the upload function, but we can certainly give you the docket link and the dates. And I'm happy, Laura or Heather, I can provide those to you guys so you don't have to search for them. And the last thing I mentioned, Roger, was this order which came out last week at some point from the administrative law judge signed to the amendment that I mentioned about the change in New York City. And that's just an order. We can also obviously provide the date to that one too.
Yep. I'd just like to see what's going on where up and down the line.
Yep. So should I send that over to Laura to include in the minutes, Bill?
yes, please.
Okay.
Hey, Bill, this is Justin.
Yes, go ahead.
Could you just give a little bit more color on this nationwide permit note? Just like flesh it out a bit.
Well, sure. I have to go look at my notes. This has been in the works for a couple of years. The nationwide permit program is administered by the Army Corps of Engineers, and what it's designed to do is sort of pre-approve certain activities in the waters of the United States, assuming that you meet certain criteria. And it's the whole program's been around, I think, oh golly, 2 or 73, sometimes soon after the Clean Water Act was enacted. And it's been a little cumbersome in some ways, and also technology has changed. And there's been other concerns about, there's been events like oil leaks and some pretty horrendous things. So they've been both trying at some level to make the program more flexible, but in some ways make it more protective of the environment. It's kind of a in my humble opinion, it's kind of a good government thing that oddly enough happened during the Reagan administration. But there was a nationwide permit number 12, which dealt sort of with utility stuff, and you wouldn't need to get an individual permit under the Clean Waters Act or the Rivers and Harbors Act if you met the criteria. That's now been divided into 3 categories, and they've created yet a couple of other nationwide permits. And the one that now would be our permit, if we were going to try to avoid getting an individual permit, is nationwide permit C, it's called. And I have to say, when we first decided to apply for an individual permit back in 2010, there was, we did think hard about whether we might just say, look, we're a nationwide permit 12 project. We're a utility project in the water. But that just seemed like a bridge too far to us. I mean, we've got, 70 miles of line in the water. And we just thought that was kind of a bit, there was a little bit of hubris in assuming that we could fit within the confines of that. So we went and got the individual permit, which I think everybody knows we got in 2015. We've amended it a couple of times, primarily about scheduling. But I mean, Matt, did I misstate anything there about the nationwide permit program? You're closer to it.
That's largely correct. So just Justin, know that they get reauthorized about every 5 years. They expire every 5 years. So we're on the cusp of a reauthorization schedule 2 years early this time, and it is they're not final yet. So the 2017 nationwide permits, which do not include this new electric utility permit, are technically enforced until 2022, unless altered by another set of nationwide permits, which we expect to happen in January, but it doesn't happen until it actually happens. And then they are proposing those 5 new permits, like Bill mentioned, which are largely broken out of other previously existing nationwide permits. So, for instance, the utilities got split out by utility type, and some aquaculture activities got split out by aquaculture type. DOS reviews them and issues a consistency determination for them every time that they're out. So our decision's actually been made already. We'll post that on our website shortly. And DEC is doing a water quality certification as well. That's I'm not sure if they've completed theirs or not yet. The new nationwides would likely, if they're authorized, not be active until March of 21.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Other business on the agenda is the priority projects list. I think that the consensus has been that, you know, as soon as we get to the moment of closing our financing and funding the trust, there's really not much to be said in favor of going through the priority projects list. Everybody knows it's obsolete in many ways and is going to have to be revised. I just think that's a question for another day, hopefully a day that's coming as soon as possible in 2021. Does anyone disagree?
This is Laura from DOS. That sounds right. You know, one thing in reviewing the executed governance agreement for the committee, it looks like there was envisioned the establishment of about 2 technical working groups that could help advise the trust administrator, Hudson River Foundation, on the projects. And it would be those bodies that could provide guidance on updating the priority projects list. So it might be worthwhile just discussing a little bit today, if folks are willing to, about those technical working groups. Those are groups that would be voted in by the governance committee members.
Yeah, remind me, are there 2 groups, one for Lake Champlain and one for the Hudson? I haven't read the governance agreement recently.
Yes, that's correct. It looks in the agreement, it says there would be, you know, obviously may establish one for the Hudson Harlem East Rivers region and another for the Lake Champlain region.
Right. Yeah, I'll take a first stab at it. I mean, I think clearly the resource agency should be on both, or should be represented on both. And then I think, you know, in the interests of economy and you would have perhaps a slightly different membership for the 2. For instance, the APA might have a particular interest in Lake Champlain and less so, or maybe not interested in the Hudson. Yeah, no, I mean, let's have a little discussion about it. That's just my initial thought. I mean, I think that's maybe a good idea, is to entertain suggestions as to membership. Would you be willing to join one or both? Right. And secondly, what could you come up with a sort of just a straw man, a proposal as to who would be on the 2, on each of the 2? And that would be interesting, because if we came up and people sort of had a similar ideas, maybe that would make it easy to sort of create these technical advisory committees and staff them. That's just those are just opening remarks, so everyone feel free to jump in.
I think maybe that's great. This is Laura from DOS. Maybe one piece before we talk about membership is, are any members participating in this call opposed to establishing technical working groups? Okay, great.
Roger, my recollection is that there were originally working groups that were pretty much above Albany and below Albany, and we had actually started to propose possible projects that for the most part have now become obsolete in terms of specific projects. But I know that I'm in New York City, but working with 3 or 4 other chapters up and down the Hudson, we've been looking at obsolete and dangerous dams that block tributaries into the Hudson, and trying to mark those for possible removal. And I think similar work is being done upstate. And we also have some other stream restoration and habitat projects that we would like to have the group consider. So between Bill being upstate and my being downstate, I think Flood Unlimited would probably want to be on both ends of it.
Yeah, and you know, actually, Matt, I was thinking, I agree with you, Roger, by the way. I mean, would the Department of State have a particular interest in the Hudson East and Harlem because of the coastal zone boundary, which doesn't include Lake Champlain? I'm wondering if there's sort of a toggle between the APA and Lake Champlain and DOS in the Hudson, Harlem, and East Rivers.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. So yeah, our interest would likely be concentrated from the Castleton Landing, not Castleton, Cementon Landing southward. Although we do have some LWRP interests up in Lake Champlain, but that's more of a planning function rather than a regulatory function.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Bill?
Yeah.
Bill Wellman, regarding Lake Champlain, there is a prototype technical advisory committee that already exists for Lake Champlain under the auspices of the Lake Champlain Basin Program, which includes Vermont, New York, and Quebec reps on technical items regarding Lake Champlain. And that could serve as the, hopefully, the resource pool when we construct any similar structure for Champ Hudson.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, again, I haven't read the governance committee agreement recently. I think the technical working groups are not necessarily limited. The membership is not necessarily limited to the members of the governance committee.
That's correct. And in our earlier discussions, we opened it up so that we could,
right.
For instance, in Lake Champlain, where I know several individual experts who would be super additions to any such group. They're not members of the committee, nor are all of the members of the Lake Champlain Basin program part of this committee. So that was really discussed earlier and agreed that we will open it up to outside members.
Right. You know, it occurs to me, why don't maybe we could have a subcommittee of the Environmental Trust Governance Committee develop someone shoveling snow somewhere. Oh, they stopped. What about this as an idea? What if the Department of State, the Antarctic Park Agency, the Department of Public Service, and the certificate holders were to form a subcommittee to come up with a straw man proposal for the membership of the two technical working groups for a presentation at the next meeting. And, you know, the subcommittee would just get together on the phone or maybe send around things by email. And that way we would have something to get our teeth into at the next meeting. And we'll take your reminder, Bill Wellman, under consideration that, you know, there are existing groups that sort of do the same thing already. And maybe there's some synergy to sort of linking to them or whatever. Would that make sense rather than sort of, we could talk about this probably for another 2 hours.
Bill, I think it would be wise to add Trout Unlimited, since both Roger and I have been very deeply involved in other aspects of both the Hudson and Lake Champlain.
Yep, so. Fair enough. I think that was an omission on my part. You should be involved.
Hey, Bill, this is Justin. I need to take this back to the city, but I would imagine that some folks might have interest in participating in one of the working groups. So I just want to reserve the right to throw the city of New York's name to the hat.
Yeah, I think New York City would definitely be involved.
Yeah. And on a separate note, I think we discussed this. It's probably been several years at this point, but I think we need to talk about the priority projects from a procedural standpoint, because I believe that it's either in the conditions or in the agreements that funding from the trust is limited to certain like priority projects, or I guess, second tier priority projects. And I think in order to change those projects, we're going to have to file some sort of amendment. I haven't looked at it in a while, but I do recall that we had this discussion several years ago about what needs to be done from a procedural standpoint in order to update the list. And I think we need to take a look at the proper mechanisms for doing that at some point.
Okay, well, I think the subcommittee could report on that too.
Great.
So I'm just going to make something up, and I won't make the motion, but somebody else can. So what the idea would be a subcommittee of the Environmental Trust Governance Committee to do two things: review the procedural requirements associated with alteration of the priority projects list, and two, to come up with a straw man proposal for the two technical working groups for consideration by the Environmental Trust Governance Committee at the next meeting, not necessarily action, but consideration. And the members of the subcommittee would be the Department of Public Service, the Department of State, the Adirondack Park Agency, the certificate holders, and who am I forgetting?
The Hudson River Foundation, the administrator.
Hudson River Foundation. Let me just make up the list here. So
Yeah.
Trout Unlimited.
Oh,
I don't mean to leave DEC out if they want in.
Hey guys, this is Jim Lodge. I think if you look back in about 2018, when Betsy Blair was chair, this discussion, we had this in a bit more detail at one of the working, one of the committee meetings.
Yeah, maybe.
And I believe that there was actually a strongman proposal produced at that time. So I just encourage folks to look at that as a beginning.
Okay.
Jim, this is Laura from DOS. Do you know, would you be able to get your hands on those meeting minutes and circulate to the group?
Sure, I'll do that.
Great, thank you.
And Bill, this is Heather Gearlock from the DEC. I don't know that we need to be part of more committees. I would just like to make sure that as the committee, is formulated, whether it gets resurrected from the 2018 timeframes or whatever it might format to be, is it just circulate with Greg and I. We obviously represent the Hudson and South, but we do have coworkers within the DEC that are involved with Lake Champlain, and we do want to make sure that we have the appropriate people on each of those working groups.
Yeah, actually, I don't think we need a motion. I think I'll just do it and send it around, Bill's straw man, and see how people react to it.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
And Heather, I will be probably in communication with some of the Region 3 and Region 4 fisheries people with regard to projects that we would have in mind.
Okay, that sounds good. I just want to make sure we're in the loop, but I think Greg and I have a full plate, so it's fine if we don't have to lead.
Yeah, the less formality, the better. I mean, especially as we get closer and closer to the great day of Jubilee, It's not.
We need DEC in several of our projects because of licensing and permitting issues.
Of course, sure. Right. Okay.
Oh yeah, we're interested in definitely being part of it. I just don't think we can lead it. We're just at capacity, but we are definitely interested and can help guide and prioritize and communicate between the department, projects, and other partners that may not be on the governance committee that may have expertise on the Hudson especially.
Yeah, no question. All right, well, so I think we should look forward to a discussion, and the minutes should reflect that, we're going to revisit the issues of the technical working groups, the priority projects, process associated with those at the next meeting. And hopefully by the next meeting, we'll have a very much clearer idea of what's going on in 2021 in terms of the project development. And I guess that kind of leads us to the meeting dates. Shall we continue to try to meet around the equinoxes and the solstices?
This is Laura from DOS. Yep. So the dates, I looked those up for 2021. That would work out to March 18, June 17, September 16, and December 16. Those would all be the Thursdays of each of those months.
Laura, this is Heather Benke, DPS. What we ran into this year is scheduling conflicts with session dates because all of our commission sessions are on the third Thursday of the month. So I know at some point, well, hopefully at some point we'll be meeting in person again and want to come to the boardroom for our meetings. So I would suggest a different day of the week if we want to keep it in the same, date time frame. Otherwise, just pick a different week.
Yeah, works. Thursday works for us, but I mean, Tuesday would work for the certificate holders.
Any objections to moving it to the third Tuesday of the month? Okay, so then that sounds like it would be March 16th, June 15th, September 14th, and December 14th. And then we'll keep the same time of 10:30.
Yeah, so moved.
Well, I'm sorry, can you repeat that again? I just got to my calendar and I do have some repeating and maybe a conflict. So can you just refresh again? What Thursday is it?
The third
Second?
Tuesday
Third
of each.
Tuesday, okay. Let me look, thank you.
Bill, while Heather's looking, so by March 16th, would you expect to have word from the ISO on the class you're studying?
Probably. We don't really know, but probably.
Okay, I'm sorry, thanks for waiting for me. I think that's good for me. Thank you.
Did you hear me, Matt?
Yes, I heard you. Thanks.
Okay, so moved on that schedule. Does anyone want to second that motion? I don't know if the chair can move, but
Second.
all in favor of the schedule for meetings next year that were just set forth?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, another unanimous vote. And any other business or questions or comments?
This is Laura from DOS. I'll just remind 2 new action items. So Josh from TDI will provide links to the PSC docket approvals that were discussed earlier. And Jim from Hudson River Foundation will circulate some meeting minutes that contained a straw man to the technical working groups.
I think it was mostly about the changes to the priority projects list. I think that's what Jim was talking about.
Hey, this is Jim. I actually just found it. I was a few years off on my dates. It was actually 2015. But I'll circulate it. It does lay out the makeup at the time, suggested makeup for the working groups, and some discussion points around how those working groups can operate. So, I'll circulate that down.
Oh, great. I really appreciate people's, having good memories. I mean, we've been meeting, I think now for, 9 years? I mean, I hate to sort of remind myself of that. But, the fact that we have this continuity and, people are willing to dig back into their memories and into their files to help us as we sort of approach the final lap. I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Yeah, Bill, I'll note that I didn't have an 8-year-old when this started. I didn't have any children, and now I have an 8-year-old. So
Did you name him Chippy? Is that your nickname for
him? I used to think
maybe if there's a licensing deal.
I used to think I would look forward to being wheeled to the bank to take the last check for the administrator when I was 102, but I think it's now going to be Jim Lodge's job to be carried to the bank. Yeah. But we have the deposit slips; they're ready.
Great. All right. Well, on a snowy day, this has been a nice way to sort of wrap up the morning. With no further business to conduct, I guess the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved by DOS.
Second by DPS.
DOS first, DPS second. Any debate? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay, thank you, everyone. We are adjourned. We'll talk to you in the almost spring.
Happy holidays, everyone. Stay safe.
Happy holidays.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.